So today we're going to create a plain seam with an overlocked edge, which is usually what you do in any garment construction, especially for beginners. Now, a seam is any two pieces of material that are sewn together and usually ironed open. For example, side seam. So to begin with, we need two rectangles of fabric with two straight edges. Now I'm going to show you today the quickest way of creating this finish. One thing you could do is you could mark your seam allowance. So for us, we're doing 1 centimeter seam allowance, so I could go along and mark my 1 centimeter line if I wanted to, but we're going to try and avoid that because that takes time. Another thing you could do is you could pin your pieces of fabric together. So going in and then out so that it is perpendicular to the seam you're going to sew. If you were to pin, you would pin, every so often, 5-10 centimeters, etc. But it should always be perpendicular to the edge, because then you can sew down, stop, take your pin out and continue. But again, for us, we're going to try and do it without marking and without pinning, okay, because that way it saves us a lot of time. So if you remember, our seam allowance is 1 centimeter, and today we're going to use the resources we have on the machine as our guide rather than marking it. So on your bobbin housing cover, you have a 1 line, and if you continue your eye along there, you've got this line on your needle plate. Now that is 1 centimeter. So we're going to use that as our guide by lining the raw edge of our fabric up against that line. So firstly, I make sure my fabric is nicely lined up, and then I can pop my work under my presser foot so it is lined up with that 1 centimeter line. To begin with, you always reverse. Also make sure it's on straight stitch too, which I checked before I started this video. As we continue, I'm going to stop and make sure it's still lined up, and I can pinch it with my right hand to make sure it's lined up, my raw edges here, and guide with my left. So all I'm doing is I'm making sure my raw edge is lined up with that line. If I can just see the O of the 10, I know it's lined up perfectly. Stop, readjust, make sure they're still lined up, and then continue. Once you get to the end, make sure you remember to reverse to lock your stitch. Take up lever in the up position and take out your work. So that is my plain seam that is sewn with straight stitch. You can see it's pretty parallel. So I got that 1 centimeter seam allowance pretty well done just by using the guide on the needle plate. Now that I've stitched my seam, I have to finish the raw edge off with the overlocker. So again, you just lift up the presser foot, line it up with the blade or that line, and finish the edge. Leave a long tail, cut. So that is my completed plain seam, which you'll be using a lot of with your shorts.